Well, welcome. We are joining Mr. Gisi today to talk a little bit about our first episode of Thursday 30. Along with me is Libby Geiselmeyer from the Mable House Art Center. My name is Robert Edwards. I am with the Mable House Barnes Amphitheater. And again, we're interviewing Mr. Jimmy Gisi, Parks Director. Everybody here? Yes? Good. Well, excellent. We wanted to start our first episode of Thursday 30 with a little background about the Mable House Complex, its history, and how it came to be. So, Mr. Gisi, when people say Mable House, what exactly do they mean? What is the Mable House Complex?
Well, Robbie, it's kind of like the old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The Mable House can mean different things to 10 different people. For those who are interested in the historical aspect, of course, you have the historic Mable House as well as the out structures. For those that are in the performing arts, you've got the amphitheater. For those that are in the visual arts, you've got the art center. So whether it's a festival grounds, whether it's performing arts, whether it's visual arts, whether it's historical, the Mable House can mean just about anything to anybody. But really, it's a complex located at 5239 Floyd Road in Mableton, Georgia, that Cobb County currently oversees.
Okay. So how did the complex come about? What's kind of the starting history of the Mable House?
Well, it goes back to 1803, really. Robert Mable was born in Scotland in 1803, and he was the oldest of 5 siblings. And Scottish game laws were pretty strict back then, and Robert was caught trapping white rabbits on the king's property and got into some pretty serious trouble. So the family decided, rather than lose our oldest son to prison, let's load up into a ship and head over to North America. The ship lands at Quebec. Eventually, the family comes down to upstate New York to settle. But Robert says, I really don't like it here. It's kind of cold up here. I think I'm going to head on down to the south, and which really upset his father, because really Robert was the reason the whole family loaded up and came over to North America, and now Robert was going to abandon the family. That ended up causing Robert's father to disinherit him, take him out of the will, and I believe he left a paltry $1 to Robert in his will. But Robert catches a boat in New York, comes down to Savannah, where he starts work at Fort Pulaski under an engineer that we'll all recognize the name, under General Robert E. Lee. He learned to become a millwright. He constructed mills in South Carolina and Georgia, and he became pretty good at his craft, and he started amassing a little bit of wealth. Well, along came the Georgia gold rush of 1832. So Robert says, I think I'm going to head north and see if I can't find some of that gold. So he comes up, he picks up a wife along the way. He met his wife in Covington, and they got married, and he came up to settle in what is now South Cobb. But when he first got here, he actually rented a 2-room log cabin on a 300-acre farm that was owned by Mr. Melton. He rented from Mr. Melton, and then eventually he ended up purchasing that property from Mr. Melton. As soon as he purchased it, the first thing he does, being a millwright, he builds a sawmill. And with that sawmill, he made the lumber that will go on, that will be used to build his house. When they move into the house, though, Robert Mable was a very big advocate of education. He turned the 2-room log cabin into a school, which was the first school in the Mableton area. So in 1845, he purchased the property. He also purchased an additional 160-acre tract. So he had a pretty nice sized farm of 460 acres. Mr. Mable went on to help build the woolen mills there at Concord, the Ruff's Mill. He was also very instrumental in building the first Presbyterian church in the area. But Robert Mable was not just a millwright, he was a farmer as well. Cotton was the main crop until 1915 when the boll weevils came through and took out cotton. But he also raised corn and sorghum. Robbie, you know what sorghum is?
I do not.
Sorghum is a plant that when it's ground down, it can be turned into syrup. So that was one of the big and Robert Mable built a mill to do that as well, being a millwright. During the Civil War, the house was used as a hospital for Union troops. And because the family was so hospitable to the troops, it was spared from being burned when they left to go on down into Atlanta. Unfortunately, Mr. Mable passed away in 1885, and the farm was divided up amongst his children. Ruth Mable, his daughter, received the 16 acres that the house is currently sitting on. Various people rented the property, one of those being one of the principals at Mableton Elementary, up until 1981, when the South Cobb Improvement Association started leasing the house for their headquarters. A year later, the South Cobb Development Authority was created by the state legislature, and they secured a 20-year lease initially to use as an office and a small community meeting space. A local arts group also kind of stepped into the picture at that time and put some art on display there in the house. The South Cobb Development Authority was able to secure a longer term lease in 1987 of 99 years. And then in 1990, the South Cobb Development Association petitioned the county to actually help them build an outdoor amphitheater. That had always been the wish of the community, to have some type of an outdoor gathering space / amphitheater, to where if you needed to bring everybody together to talk about an issue, that was where you could do it at. So the county did help in 1990 by just clearing the land and then doing some grading and then grassing the area. But it was county labor utilizing county equipment to do that. They didn't spend any money on it. And then in 1995, the South Cobb Development Authority subleased the property to Cobb County government. And that's kind of how we got a hold of the property. The way some of the facilities got started, the year after the county took over the property or took over the sublease, Georgia State Bank, which was right across the street from the Mable House at that time, offered to give the county some land there at the front of the park where the art center currently sits, if the county would secure the remainder of the property needed. So that happened. That's the way it happened. They gave us half of the property that the art center currently sits on, and then the county secured the other half to build the art center on. In 1996, the art center was included in our bond program, and that the voters approved. And so we got to work, and then it was opened in May of 1999 with a ribbon cutting. So that's how we got the art center. Also in 1999, Governor Roy Barnes, who was kind of raised right across the street, also from the property, he was governor then, and he contacted the county about, where exactly are y'all at in building our amphitheater? And we all said, well, it's still a great idea, but we don't have funding to do it. So he was able to get $6 million included in the state budget to help us build that, the Mable House Amphitheater at that time. And then the county contributed another $1 million, made it a $7 million facility. The contract was approved to start in 2001. And then we cut the ribbon in 2003 with Winona, Winona Judd, and that's pretty much the whole history from 1803 to 2003.
Okay, excellent. So over the years, there's been various improvements within the complex. What improvements have been added over the past couple of years?
Well, there's been a couple of DNR, Department of Natural Resources grants that have helped with the historic house. There was one back in the 90s. Also, part of that $6 million grant that we got from the state, about 150,000 was included for us to modernize the historic Mable House. So we did those improvements. While we're talking about the historic Mable House, our staff has also gone in and done some repairs, some improvements, some modernizations. We have some very talented woodworkers on our staff, and recently, within the last couple of years, they've gone in and redid the kitchen house to where it looks very nice. Recently, down at the amphitheater, we have gone in and totally remodeled the backstage area where the performers are, the green room, the dressing rooms, and all that area. We also went into the lawn and put in some tiered seating, which is synthetic turf, and it gives a little bit more order to the way that people sit up on the lawn. And we've got a few other things that we're going to try to do. Coming up over the next 6 to 8 months will be a cover over the drop-off area where the ticket booth is. We'll have that, along with maybe some new signage and things like that. So nothing should ever stay status quo. There's always something that needs to be done.
So on the historic property, what are the original buildings to the property?
The original couple of buildings is I got to make sure I got this right. The house, the kitchen house, and then there was one other one.
The smokehouse?
No, the smokehouse or the
Smokehouse.
Oh, yeah, the smokehouse. Yeah.
Main house, smokehouse, and the kitchen house were in 1843. And then the corn crib, the blacksmith building, the sweet potato house were all brought in from neighboring properties. The garden has been recreated where it was, and of course, the cemetery is where it's always been.
Okay. So what was the original purpose of the complex? Is it just cultural arts? Was it a community center for Mableton? Is it kind of, can you speak about what the purpose was for the complex?
Well, it's yes. I guess the answer is yes for all the things you said. But I think the main purpose was that amphitheater originally. And I don't think it was meant to be as nice and extravagant, or not extravagant, as nice as it is now. The original thoughts was just to have a stage area with a sloped grass area, so folks could gather. If they wanted to do a play, they could. If they wanted to have a town meeting, they could. But that was always what drove the South Cobb Development Authority. That's always what drove the citizens in that area. And then when the historic house started being used as a office for the South Cobb Development Authority, people started realizing, hey, we could use somewhere to hold inside meetings. It's nice having this art put up here. It's nice having somewhere to do all these things, but the Mable House was so small. So then the vision or the dream kind of morphed into, hey, we need a community building. We need a community center, an art center. And that's how it got added onto the 96 bond program. Commissioner Woody Thompson was very instrumental in doing that in that area, as well as Commissioner Freeman Poole. Both of those gentlemen in the South Cobb area were very instrumental in that happening.
Okay. So has anything changed since the original building concept of the complex to today? Is there, I know originally the county presented its own concert series. Can you kind of go into some background about where we were started at and how kind of we're at now? Because a lot of people
Sure.
don't probably understand.
And we're talking about just the amphitheater, right?
Yes.
Yes. When it first opened in 2003, we had a management company that had staff on site, and then we had staff as well. Most of the maintenance staff were ours that helped, and they would actually put together a season for each year. The county would provide a budget, and then they would go out and secure the talent. That worked well conceptually. There were great concerts. There were a lot of people in the seats. However, a lot of folks started realizing we might be what you would call a tweener. We were in between the large venues like Chastain or some of the large ones who could bring in enough people to cover the cost of the major acts versus a very small venue, which would maybe just have local talent, but the price tag would be a lot less. So we were kind of in that tweener range. We had 2,500-ish seats that we could sell. So what it did is some of your larger acts that we tried to bring in, we might sell it out, but at the price point we had to hit, it was hard for us to cover the cost of the acts, plus all the periphery that goes on around behind what it takes to put on one of those shows. So we did pretty well as far as bringing in people to the seats, but it wasn't making money. And as an enterprise fund at that time, we really needed to be at least breaking even or making money. So that trudged on a few years, but then all of a sudden this recession hit around the 2007, 2008, 2009. And it was realized that we didn't need to keep it as an enterprise fund anymore. It was brought into the folds as a county department or a county budget, and our staff, started operating it. And what we've been able to do, especially recently over the last 2 or 3 years, is by using promoters, you have turned it around to where it is actually turning a profit now. Yes, we have some of our shows, some of our theatrical camps and things like that, but the promoters have realized that it is a diamond in the rough down there, and they're putting together good seasons. They found the niche, the right genre that it takes to turn a profit, and now by utilizing the promoters that you have found, it's in really, really good shape.
And coincidentally, we will be interviewing main promoters next Thursday 30 to kind of delve into kind of some of his background and how he's gotten to the successes he's seen in the past couple of years. So can you kind of, what is the vision of the complex moving forward? What in the current iteration of what we have going on in the complex, what do you see us are growing into the future? What do you see us programming into the future and kind of the new era?
Well, I think as far as the amphitheater goes, we've found the right spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good to continue down the road where we're headed on as far as that facility goes. I think what we're going to see more in the future is more grounds type events, things held on the grounds versus just in the amphitheater, just in the art center, or just at the historic house. I'm seeing festivals. I'm seeing things for families with children who want to get out of the house and get out and go around, get a balloon, get some cotton candy, things like that. That's what I'm really thinking is going to happen on that complex. We've got the space to do it. We have some parking. However, we've got great neighbors in that area with the South Cobb Regional Library and some others that we can use off-site parking at. Tying that into the improvements that are going on over at the Mableton Town Square with a playground and things over there. Everything's kind of in that area now, and I foresee a lot more community-oriented festivals and things like that. Libby's doing a great job up at the center, just getting outside the box with what we're dealing with right now. She has done a tremendous job with our mystery art box and several other programs that she's doing. So I think our facilities are under great leadership and heading in the right direction, but I do feel like we're going to see more grounds-oriented programming in the future.
And what do you see the economic impact of this complex in this community? I know that sometimes we get a little underrated, but can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Well, one of the driving forces behind Cobb County's capital program is the special purpose local option sales tax program. And it's a proven fact that about 30 cents of every dollar that comes into the SPLOST program comes from out of county residents. What we have done is we have created a destination on that complex that people are coming in from outside of Cobb County to come to performances. And that's whether they stop and fill up their car with gas, whether they stop at a QT or racetrack, or stop at a Burger King. That SPLOST program benefits from those visitors coming into our county. In an effort to keep everyone's property taxes as low as they are, there's hardly any capital in the operating budgets of Cobb County departments, and SPLOST is used for that capital program. So the economic impact of anything that brings people into our county is of great benefit to our capital campaign. But not only them, but people coming from next door. There's just a buzz in the South Cobb community about what your performers, what your promoters have started over the last couple of years. They can't wait to see what's on the schedule for next year.
Well, I could definitely speak to we know kind of what's coming on next year because everything that happened this year, because we've pushed things into next year, but we're definitely looking forward to the programming coming back next year. Libby, do we have any questions at this time?
So if anyone has any questions, there's a Q&A box, or through the chat, I can field them. If anybody has anything that they would like to ask Mr. Gisi, Director Gisi.
Or Jimmy.
Or Jimmy. I don't know. I know that there's a few people on here, but I don't know if I don't see anything yet. And I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning, that they could utilize that. It's a learning curve. But I don't see anything at the moment. There may not be any questions. I can't believe that Mickey McDaniel doesn't have a question. I see her on here. Maybe she's typing it. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if there's any
Libby,
questions.
do you have any questions you would like to ask Mr. Gisi about the complex and history?
Actually, what's been your favorite thing through the year? Because you've got some years in. What's been your favorite experience here on the property?
Gosh, there's so many of them. The candy cane hunts were always so, and maybe that's just because it was that time of the year. Around the holidays, everyone gets into a festive mode, and just all the kids coming out looking for candy canes. That's always been one of my favorites. But I tell you what, that night when we opened up the amphitheater and everyone was in their tuxes and that was, you could just feel the chill bumps that night on your arm. And the night that we renamed the amphitheater to the Mable House Barnes Amphitheater, and having Governor Barnes and his wife Marie and that was a special night. But there's been some great talent that has performed at that facility. There's several of them that night, plus the candy cane hunts, and it's just a great facility. I did see one question from Patty. Is there an official list of Cobb County maintained parks? Absolutely. If you go to our website at cobbparks.org, we have a list of all of them. It's 6,000 total acres. We've got about 90 properties, about 75 or 78 of them are developed, but there's a list of them there, and actually a map that shows you where they're all at.
All right. Any other question, Libby? Any questions you have?
Robbie,
Jimmy?
Libby, I have a trivia question for you.
Sure.
And you may know this. How many years was the city of Mableton incorporated?
Oh, I don't know that question.
Well, it was unincorporated in the 40s, right? I just don't know. Was it the 40s? No.
A little bit before that.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I know why, right? It was because of the flood. The flood.
But why did it flood?
Because there was rain. Is that a good question?
Good answer. I like that.
Good answer.
I do
right. It was the city for 4 years. When CSX came through and built the rail line, they did not put storm drains under the rail line. So what happened when you had the big rain, water could not go further south. And the health department came out and looked at it, and they told the city of Mableton, hey, you gotta fix this. So the city of Mableton had a big town meeting and said, hey, do you want us to raise your taxes to fix this? Or do you want us to unincorporate and give it to the county? And everyone, well, not everyone, but it was a majority of people that said, we want to unincorporate and let the county fix this. So that's your historical message for the day, other than the fact that Robert Mable was trapping white rabbits on the king's property.
I love that. I love that. But yeah, that's basically all I have, Robbie. I don't see any other questions at the moment.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions for Mr.
Yes, there is. There is a question. Any chance of getting the barn? Oh, wait. There's a question. Although I can't find it now. I swear I saw it. Getting the barn from Miss Lucy's, I think. Thank you. It's been fun. Was that through chat? How do I? Sorry, technical difficulty. We're finding this. There was a question that popped up. Any chance of getting the barn from Miss Lucy's house across from Floyd Middle School?
Well, there's always a chance. I've not looked into that, but if it's something that that would be something that you or Robbie would kind of evaluate, let it bubble up, and we can definitely look at it.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I think this is great what y'all are doing, guys.
Thank you.
It'll be real interesting to see Jeremy Hill's interview next Thursday. Jeremy has came in as a promoter and has done a great job with partnering with us, and it's going to be interesting to see his take on the future as well.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to hear his background, and especially since and everybody will see Jeremy's not that old, so the fact that he's become a very large name in the promotion business at such a young age, I think is a very good credit to him, and he's a smart guy, and I'm looking forward to talking with him next week.
Yep, it'll be good.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome
for doing this and being our first one. We'll see how it goes.
You're welcome.
It was fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.